Well, let's get more on this. We're joined by Rob Parsons, our chief foreign editor. Rob, we just heard from Leo's piece, tensions rising between France, between its former colonial power. Where could this be heading?
Well, it doesn't look very good at the moment. There doesn't seem to be an awful lot of room for compromise or any sense of compromise coming from either side. The junta, as you pointed out, has been taking an ever stronger position towards the French presence in Niger. Last Friday, the ambassador was told to leave. He hasn't left. The French authorities, the French government has said it doesn't recognize the authority of the junta. Now they're stepping up the odds. They've told the police to expel the French diplomats from Niamey, the capital. The French authorities, as we saw in that report just now, have responded to that by saying that they still don't recognise the authority of the military authorities in Niger, and that the French military are on standby to protect any diplomatic and military interests that they have in the country. That doesn't sound like either side is on the path to compromise. On the contrary, it looks like tensions are going to ramp up even further. Interestingly, too, President Macron said that France supports any steps that Ecowas, the regional bloc, might take to use its standby army for intervention in Niger. So that possibility is hanging over the country at the moment. Ecowas still dithering about what it wants to do. It's been hesitating for several weeks now. It may find, though, that that the events elsewhere on the continent may push it towards taking more precipitate action. The fact that there's been another coup d'etat in Gabon, for instance, may persuade them that perhaps this is the moment for ECOWAS to get involved, to take action now to prevent further coup d'etats later on. For the moment, though, France is faced with a dilemma on the ground about what it should be doing. It's ironic in a way that it's happening in Niger, that France should find itself in this position of talking about ignoring what seems to be a coup d'etat which is pretty much established and in place, when France has been saying over the last few years or so that it wants to develop a new relationship with the continent of Africa, with France-Afrique, as the former French colonies are called, to develop a more cooperative relationship and what we'll call a more normal relationship with the continent. It's been putting the accent in Niger on good governance, democratic institutions, and a security arrangement that is more equal. That seemed to be in place in Niger, but it's Niger that everything has suddenly come to a head, and that France is faced with this possibility of being in the situation where people on the street are saying, pack your bags and go home. It was not intended to be like this.
I think also maybe speaking the words a lot of people watching are feeling right now. Bola Tinubu in Nigeria saying that he worries about copycat action elsewhere. So if we go from the situation in Gabon, rewind just a month to Niger, as you mentioned, and then before that what we had, Guinea, Burkina Faso, Mali, you know, what's your sense about one influencing the other?
Well, I think that it does seem to be the case that is what is happening. There was a period the first sort of 10 years or so of this century where it seemed like Africa's reputation for being a continent of coup d'etat was no longer justified. Now that's beginning to change again. With the last 3 years, 8 coups d'etat, President Macron of France talking about an epidemic of coups. Just the other day, the African Union referring to a contagion of coups, other people's calling it a cascade of coups. But that is pretty much what it looks like. And the fear is, as ECOWAS was pointing out just the other day, is that this could spread elsewhere. There are other countries which could well be on the cusp of seeing something very similar. How do you go about presenting it? It was interesting that we saw in the last report, Joseph Borrell, the European Union foreign policy chief, talking about a distinction he was making between what happened in Gabon and what happened in Niger. Niger, in his view, being completely unjustified. Gabon, by implication, he was saying it was justified because there's been run by a family clan for the last 55 years, no turnover of power. One has to question, though, whether he's missing the point a little bit here, because what's in the mind, I think, is the most important thing. What's in the mind of the coup leaders? Is there any suggestion that the coup leaders in Gabon are going to be any more inclined to introduce the sort of good governance, democratic values, institutions that Joseph Borrell presumably liked to see put in place. At this stage, I don't think there's any justification for jumping to that conclusion. And the fear will be, as ECOWAS has been suggesting, that there could be more coups d'etats around the corner, and not just in countries which are considered unstable today, but perhaps in some that have long been considered pillars of stability, particularly in West Africa. People have been looking at Ghana, Nigeria, where there haven't been coups d'etats for a long time, but where there is a history in the past of coups d'etat. Could they be about to return there as well?
Very interesting, especially given that you say the similarities on the coup, but the differences of what's actually going on the ground in those countries. Rob Parsons, our Chief Foreign Editor, thank you.